And welcome back to Chronicle. This morning we're talking about the California wildfires, relief efforts for those impacted, and the situation back here. And joining us now to talk about the firefight and Nebraska's wildfire season, State Fire Marshal Scott Cordis. Scott, thanks so much for coming in today. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, sir.
So first off, your reaction to what's happening in California?
Well, it's devastating. My heart goes out to those folks, from the citizens impacted individually and to the first responders doing their absolute best to try to contain and extinguish those fires. It's overwhelming. So unprecedented situation out there, and our heartfelt best wishes go out to all of them. Do
you analyze it from a firefighter's perspective when you see the video?
You can't help but watch and wonder and question and in your own mind try to rationalize what could have been done different or better or whatever. I think the realization for me is you mix the kind of drought conditions they've had with those excessive winds, and I'm not sure that any fire department anywhere, anyhow, could do anything to stop what was going to happen there. So any criticism for their lack of effort is unacceptable in my mind, because the conditions that they were dealt, the cards that they were dealt, were impossible to overcome. It was just the recipe was right for an incredible disaster there. So very, very tough to watch and observe.
Right. And I know while we're talking, they're still looking for causes of these fires. What can cause wildfires?
Well, I mean, it varies certainly. Here locally, we see lightning is a big cause, unattended fires, camping, discarded cigarettes. We even see controlled fires, intended fires that get out of control. And so good intentions and the best practice put in place, and then the wind changes or something goes wrong, or a rekindle happens a day or two or three later and sparks an unintended fire that spreads. And if the conditions are right, pretty soon we have multiple fire departments responding to try to thwart back something that shouldn't have really happened in the first place.
And you investigate fires as part of your job. I mean, what's going to be key, do you think, in California as far as investigation? What would they be going through?
Well, certainly they want to evaluate everything that's happened there so that they can make decisions about doing things better in the future, from forest management to establishing subdivisions with the appropriate water supplies, with doing where urban interface is occurring, you have the appropriate separations between the vegetation and the structures, and using fireproofing methods for the structures to minimize the chance of them catching fire. There are some best practices that can be put in place, but certainly doesn't always guarantee absolute success in the end. But there are certainly things that can be done. Obviously, those things cost money. It takes additional effort. Some of those are very unpopular when the government's trying to tell you how to design your property. Sure. But those are all things that should be considered as safeguards to try to prevent that catastrophic continuation of those fires, because it could be roadway systems wide enough to become natural barriers, things that become breaks in the propagation of those fires as they spread. So there's things that can be done. They're not always easy to do, especially in existing neighborhoods that are already established. To go back and try to retrofit those things is not easy. So it's a challenge, and it's easy to throw stones at that, but it's a big animal to handle, a big thing to manage. So and every situation's unique, and every community and set of guidelines or regulations that they enforce locally, from zoning regulations to any kind of preventative measures, they vary greatly from jurisdiction to jurisdiction.
We are about to enter the so-called fire season in Nebraska now. I mean, it used to be later, but now I've heard March is kind of one of the high holy times for when the conditions can be ripe for wildfires in Nebraska. First off, is that true? And second of all, how does the wildfire season look?
That is typically true, sir. The kind of the local, or the most recent analogy is that we don't call it a fire season anymore because it's become all year. Last year in Nebraska, we had fires from February to December, which is very unusual that we go that long. So we had response teams out assisting in those fires basically the whole calendar year, and that's unusual. It's a trend that's been growing. It's something that if you read any national publication, you see that that's not happening just in Nebraska. It's happening everywhere. So to prepare for that. It isn't just a short window of time of a few months. It's the whole calendar year. And it obviously varies with the moisture content and those conditions, but it's become a bigger problem for a longer period of time, certainly.
So how do we mitigate the damage or the potential for damage? How can we try to prevent these wildfires from spreading in Nebraska? I mean, they're going to happen.
Well, certainly any best practice that we can use when we have a chance to, if we're going to start a campfire, make sure it's extinguished. Some of those basic things we taught as a young Boy Scout, perhaps.
Sure, right.
Doing things like when the fire departments are doing training exercises or authorizing burn permits for controlled burns, making sure that those are the right things burning in the right place at the right time, and doing the appropriate follow-up to make sure that they're extinguished on the backside. Preventive maintenance on agricultural equipment is a big thing. We had a lot of combine fires that started this year. And so anything that can be done to assure that those are running properly and smoothly, and appropriate bearing replacement and all those things that keep any malfunction from happening is wise. Keeping vegetation back from railroad tracks to prevent any spark from igniting there. There's things that can be done, but certainly we had a lot of naturally caused fires this year by lightning that you and I or anybody else is not going to prevent.
Right. Well, Scott, I appreciate you coming in today. Good advice, and hopefully this season, knock on wood, it won't be too bad.
Thank you, sir. I'm hopeful as well. Thank you.
Take care. Well, coming up, Nebraskans facing the wildfires back in California. That's where we're going to go as they share their stories of having to retreat and rebuild.